Antiquity Unveiled, the most marvelous revelations of the 19th century concerning the origin of Christianity. And we're continuing the epilogue by Professor Hilton Hoektema. Kill all the heretics? Well, heresy is the key to temporal and spiritual enlightenment. Don't let them cause you to forget that. All people in the Catholic Christian countries who refuse to have down all the superstitious dogmas and authority of the Pope and his Church were called heretics, and according to the Mother Church, it is the duty of the Pope and his Catholic organization to suppress and kill them, a policy that has been observed and pursued for 1,500 years, until they lost the authority to do such. The Catholic Church is about to become it's only going to be two churches that are going to be the majority of Christians in this country, and the Catholic Church is one of them. So let's see if the Church of Jesus Christ, the Latter-day Saints, or the Catholics are the let's see what percentage of the country is left as Christians when those two groups are pretty much running the show. I mean, as far as Christianity in America. The Pope claims to have to be the direct representative of God on earth and exercise the authority of that God in ruling the one true church, the only church that Christ established and the one true that God recognizes. One of the greatest expounders of the doctrine of Roman Catholicism was Saint Thomas Aquinas, who lived in the 13th century in the midst of the Dark Ages when the Church was at the very pinnacle of its glory. It is required that his writings must be studied in every Roman Catholic college by order of the Pope Leo XIII, who reigned from 1878 to 1903. In 1265 to 1272, Aquinas wrote his masterpiece, Summa Theologica, in which he expressed the attitude of the Mother Church towards heretics as follows. With regard to heretics, 2 points must be observed, one on their side, the other on the side of the Church. On their own side, there is the sin whereby they deserve not only to be separated from the Church by excommunication, but also to be severed from the world by death. For it is a much greater matter to corrupt the faith which quickens the soul than to forge money, which supports temporal life. Wherefore, if forgers of money and other evildoers are forthwith condemned to death by the secular authorities, much more reason is there for the heretics, as soon as they are convicted of heresy, to be not only excommunicated, but even put to death. And it's a shame that people of other groups, other than the Christians, have taken on some things like this, even though the claims to revelation and the claims to inspiration within their tradition don't follow that. But people look at, there are biblical reasons for this being the response. But the punishing people for mere disbelief or some problem in belief. Now, we can say somebody who's a complete disbeliever, maybe that's, better to associate with them than somebody who openly and clearly deviates some basic thing. That's something that's become apparent, and, they're increasing obligations or decreasing them or something, because you're thinking, oh well, they're a person of my faith, and they qualify as that, but they're certainly not a believer in the faith. They're not a fundamentalist, not a conservative. They're coming up with their own thing, or maybe they are conservative, and that's the problem. Criticized How dare you? How dare you look at the sources and make your own conclusions? You can't have your own opinion. I sometimes get comments like that online, and it's like, I mean, how can you directly follow if you're not forming your own opinions or having something authentically your own? The present day hierarchy, very diplomatically, soft pedal in the USA the claims of their church that they, the church, have the right to condemn all people who do not agree with the church. In their Knights of Columbus advertisements, they offer books on the church, free to all, and they falsely pretend in these books that their hierarchy and pope claim only to have authority over their own members, the Catholics and no one else. Look at the interfaith movement. The Unitarians and the Catholics run the show with the interfaith movement. It's not interfaith reaction. It's not comparative religion studies. It's like pretending we're all the same, but making the Catholics or the Unitarians to be the overseers of it all, which has other implications. But also, they say that the hundreds of thousands of heretics were burned to cinders in the Middle Ages, and their property was confiscated for the benefit of the church, because this was then considered proper. Of course, they try to make the world believe they would not even think of doing such a dastardly deed now. This is another deceptive misrepresentation and church falsehood. Look at the support of Israel. The Christians are leading, ever since the 1880s, the Christians have led the charge of the thing about Israel, because they know that putting the Jews there will create enemies that they never had. Safe refuge gone, not only in Sham, but all over the world. Basically, people look at Israel as, well, you're the little lackeys of the Americans. $2 trillion a year from the Americans, another trillion from the Brits as a welfare check. But 40 billion could end world poverty. But no, we want to focus on Israel and look at the hundreds of thousands of people that have been killed and millions, tens of millions that have been oppressed for long periods of time. Pope Leo XIII, mentioned above, stated that the death sentence is a necessary and efficacious means for the Church to attain its ends. The only reason why the Roman Catholic hierarchy does not now have inquisitorial courts in all Christian countries is because it does not have control of the government to that extent, given that much control of the governments as it had during the Dark Ages, and the horrible deeds of the Dark Ages will be with us again. Now, places of worship, according to the Constitution, that can run their own course, if there's an internal conflict and that sort of thing, and marriages should be up to that, and you find in secret societies that you're supposed to try to settle things internally, and so when we hear about Sharia courts, marriage is a religious thing, so it's up to the people, so they're, some people are going to their house of worship and trying to get their marriage and other issues settled. I was witness, I saw the video because they were doing the investigation of a masjid that I've shown on the first one on the playlist, and somebody stole from the donation box, and now they could have just prosecuted them in a very cruel, possibly very cruel way, worse than what a murderer would deserve. Or they said, okay, you want to make things right, what's called kafara. So multiplied what he gave to give back to the organization, and he didn't. So he said, yeah, I'll agree. I'll pay this. So to reestablish, to set himself up with the community. But I was, but I don't think he any longer had the key to open the place after that point. But But certainly we're not calling out death penalties for, oh, heretics. They don't, they don't, a lot of the claims to heresy that people have, it's not that it's not supported or anything. It's that it's just a different psychological or ethnic interpretation, and people are like, oh no, no. Pope Leo XI mentions the above stated that the death sentence is necessary and efficacious means for the Church to attain its ends. Well, the Catholic Church didn't care if it could absorb saints. It could make saints and all sorts of stuff. So it could change and add things. Well, adding things is changing. The only reason why the Roman Catholic hierarchy does not now have inquisitorial courts in all Christian countries is because it does not have the control of the governments to that extent. Given that much of the control of the governments as it had during the Dark Ages and the horrible deeds of the Dark Ages will be with us again. I should keep my thumb in the same place. I've repeated stuff. Sorry. The agents of the Mother Church made the Bible, and the remarkable feature of the Bible is a crafty manner in which the compilers wove facts and frauds together. Even secular states. Secular states have been much stronger in this thing, and that goes for monarchs in the Middle East that have, oh, you can't criticize the government, even if it's to say that, religion has a better answer. Not that we're going to forcibly overturn you, but this is, what Islam teaches, or this is what something else teaches, and people get killed for that every single year. Right now, there's a pilgrimage going on, and people are getting killed, and people have been killed for encouraging Islam in a way that the government feels, oh, no, that sounds like criticism of us. Given that much control of the government and had during the Dark Ages, the agents of the Mother Church made the Bible, and the most remarkable feature of the Bible is the crafty manner in which the compilers have woven facts and frauds together. It is not one chapter in it, and not even one paragraph, where facts and falsehoods are stated separately. Each falsehood is inseparably connected with an undeniable fact, and yet the fact and the false are so intrinsically and delicately interwoven, as Professor Hoektema has shown in Cosmic Creation, that it is impossible for the unprepared mind to separate the one from the other. The Bible has gone out to the world and chained in darkness a larger number of unsuspecting people than any other secular book has ever done. And those deceived victims must live in that darkness until they shall have evolved to such mental ability that they can winnow the facts from the falsehoods and come to understand the falseness. And one point that I would definitely make and encourage is the simple fact that many of us, because we're not Christian, believe in the truth of the Bible much more, because our focus isn't on Christianity, it's about what good and truth is left in here. The Bible is the greatest book of distortion, interpolation, fraud, falsehood, misrepresentation that man has ever produced. Well, until the New Agers, right? And the direct purpose of the nefarious work has to enthrone the church and to enslave the masses. Well, there was more to it, and I think mostly more to it, but no system of human enslavement in the entire history of the world has ever been so clever, cunning, and complete as that termed Roman Catholicism, and its branch called Protestantism is only a short step better. It's become worse. Particularly this thing about don't be righteous. It doesn't matter what's true. Even the Bible, I just focus on Jesus and preemptively forgiven. Yeah, they behave better than the secular population. Just a little bit, but not enough to justify the self-righteous claims. Now, by self-righteous, I mean you're supposed to be righteous, but this You know, since the Roman Church was founded in the 4th century, the world has had priests, preachers, churches, seminaries, Sunday schools, sermons, lectures, conferences, synods, Bibles, catechisms, brochures, pamphlets, retreats, monasteries, radio, TV, etc. And yet we are constrained to ask, how much have all these actually helped humanity? Well, we have tools. And if we use these tools, social and technological, things can be for the better. But what have people have done with what they listen to and what they watch and the other ways? It's not because these technologies exist. It's because of the corruption of the human being that has been allowed by the other human beings. None of this, we don't need any of this slave, oh, well, they're in charge of us. That's a sick slave mentality. It's, look at in America how the standards of what was acceptable in terms of what was on the TV and everything and all sorts of other stuff was directed by the American public. Oh, this is too obscene, and then they pick another level and go that far, and now they're so into just makeup's unacceptable. Now we want to change the people get surgeries to completely change their body to even look like they're of the other gender. During these same centuries, we've had wars, hatred, slavery, and slavery in terms of abuse, generational slavery, in particular, is pretty bad. Poverty, drug addictions, killings, murders. America's number one with a lot of this stuff. They do so much overseas, and we have 40,000 a year. Most of which can be classified as honor killings if we were doing the same reporting for, it happened, some Hindu or Muslim was involved, and it was in a foreign country, so it was an honor killing. It's like, most of the people being killed aren't mass shootings and stuff. It's people being disrespected. If you're respectful to people, it prevents things. So, and you encourage others to be respectful. You can disagree left and right to the point of, this is a horrible monster that, let's bring back the death penalty or something. But let's treat people with respect. Murders, intolerance, divorces, crowded prisons, crowded insane asylums, juvenile delinquency, and what not. Something must be wrong. Now, in sorcery, now I'm not agreeing with sorcery. Sorcery has less of a problem with the insanity and the helpless addiction and stuff like this because the drug use is controlled. But once you got to the point where the priests were drinking the spare wine after 6 masses per night and day, that a problem could have been allowed to develop. But everybody shows up a little sip and I inhaled. So why did the church fathers burn the ancient libraries and destroy the ancient literature, to destroy the evidence that Christianity is the biggest fraud the world has ever known? As late as the 13th century, the Apollonian system was so well supported by historical evidence that it could not be disputed. It was Gregory VII, also called Gregory the Great, who in 1080 ordered the burning of the library of the Palatine Apollo at Rome, in order to destroy the historical proof that the Jesus Christ of the Bible had never lived, and that Christianity was the Apollonian system under a new name. And as as I close this particular section, let me remind you of what I believe to be the truth based on the evidence. And based on what was being talked about here, it wasn't just one figure, it was a whole series of figures. Yuda Barabbas ben Yuda, writer of the Book of Revelations as we have it. Well, not as we have it, it was changed into a Christian document. It wasn't originally a Christian document. we have the Messiah figure, that teacher of wickedness among the Essenes, as people would call them. He's trying to make things available to the general public and open spirituality and priesthood authority to everyone. And they had a Mount of Olives and all sorts of stuff. Barabbas, somebody who died. Barabbas ben Judah was killed between two people, but he fulfilled his promise. His two witnesses got killed with him.